Now that the blanks are glued and cured, it's time to clean up the ends. There's many ways of doing it. One way is to just use a barrel trimmer. That's one that I made. Well, I made the shaft. That one's been modified. That one's from an old machine. Another way to square up the pin blank is to just use a cheap disc sander. You want to make sure your shaft is square with the sanding disc. It's pretty quick and simple. You don't want it to move back and forth, just in case. Just in case you're not square. That's what you want to see. A little bit of brass all the way around. I usually just use acrylics on this machine to square them up. And I'll use the barrel trimmers on wood. The tool we're going to be using for the variation is going to be done on this larger blank, which the tube does not extend all the way through, as you can see. And the reason for that is because we're going to use a modified barrel trimmer to trim out some of this to allow for this bottom blank to slide into it. You can use different step drills like this one here, or a pilot drill. It's actually a counter pilot drill. The pilot's pretty much the same, except for you have a drill bit as a pilot versus just a shank as a guide pilot. As you can see, there's about a 1/2 inch counter sink or counter bore in that. And when we turn this, we'll turn a shoulder on this that fits into that counter bore. The barrel trimmer is a better method though, because it's real hard to get the disc perfect square. Try to do this one-handed. Opposite-handed anyway. That's the basic idea of it. You should just square it up with the tube. I'm going to change battery. Okay, I got a new battery now. Let's see if this goes better. As you can see, we're down to the tube. That's what we want. If this surface here isn't parallel with the tube, it'll just spin and slip on the mandrel. You can hold the blank in your hand, but I wouldn't. If it catches, it's going to spin around and rip your hand. Once all the pin blanks are squared up, it's time to do turning, but before we do that, we gotta do something special to this variation kit that we're gonna do. Now we're ready for turning. Just a quick note, you don't want to remove too much of the brass because it's going to change the length of your barrel inside. Let's move on to turning now. I'm going to do the variation last. Before I start, turning. You can see I have an inspection gauge on the mandrel, and this is just a check for run out. And it looks like we have about 7. If you have a great deal of run out, it's going to throw your pins off. Easy way to straighten it is to just take a small rubber hammer and tap it. Get the shaft back in line, running true. Right here is our low spot. I don't think I can do this. Which is right there. You don't want to tap it with your gauge in contact. You can damage your inspection gauge or surface gauge. And what we'll do is just give it a little tap. Let's see what we have now. And as you can see, we're much better now. Much better. As long as it's not over 10 thou, though, you're good. You don't want to put too much pressure on your mandrel because that'll throw your mandrel off the center. So make sure you don't have your tailstock too tight. Okay, I'm going to try this mount. This might be too noisy, but we'll try and see. If it doesn't work, it'll probably be the only video you'll see of turning. I'm going to be using just a standard skew. This is an old skew that I made. This was actually used for hand carving wood, but I've modified it for turning wood. Before I start, if the material you're turning is very unstable, start with the ends and then cut the middle out. That'll keep it from exploding or tearing out on you. This is olive wood. Now if you'll notice, when I was turning it, I wasn't holding it flat, slightly at an angle. If If you hold it flat, you just tear the wood out. It don't really cut. If you bring it in at an angle, which it's ABCs, angle, bevel, cut. A, B, C, cut. Once you get it down to round, though, it's pretty quick and simple. I should have sharpened my tool before I started. What this is doing is shearing the wood. By doing this, you can eliminate the use of using a skew. I've swapped over to a different live center, but the problem is the bushing. It wasn't the live center. A little high. I'm going to machine some more off of the bushing to get the tool rest down lower. Well, we'll try it like this. We'll try it high. I'm not going to real straight. Not really. Go real straight and down. Big old knot. Have to be careful around the knot. Pull a little tear out. Yeah, the knot goes all the way through. It's a good time to show how to do a fill-in. I'm not going to turn anymore on that blank. I'll do a probably graphite fill-in. Okay, I'm going to turn the other blank. Then I'll fill this in. Take it off and move to the next one. Still didn't sharpen it. Once again, if you use it this way, you might get a catch at the end. Catches are not good. Can damage the piece, get hurt. This is turning that very slow RPM. You can turn these any way you want to, any profile, even straight. I prefer though to have a little bevel. I'll switch and then. The proper way to use a skew is to come in at an angle like this. I don't really need to skew this because the way I've done the first cutting, just to show how to use the skew. That's the proper way to use a skew. I've seen people use them as scrapers, and you can, but they're not meant to be used like that. They're not meant to be used. They're going to come down almost to the bush. We're just proud of the bushes on both sides. Good enough for now. Now I'm going to do the fill in. You can use wood glue and whatever you want. I'm going to be using a graphite powder to fill it in. Normally I'd use a thin CA glue. And basically what you'll do is fill the void. I don't know how thin this is going to be. It might be thick. You might have to mix it with a paste, into a paste, if it's too thick, like this is. This is not going to work. Just a few quick tips on super glue finish. When you apply the glue, apply it from the top with the towel underneath, and try not to get any near the bushings, and let the towel work the glue over towards the bushing. And if you hold the rag like this, fold it like this, if it does catch, it's going to catch and pull it this way, so it gives you time to release it. Not going to work. Try not to get the glue in bushings. You can glue the blank to the bushing. No wick effect on this one. But as long as I've got it to where you can't see the brass, I can fill it with the CA glue. Fill the void. If you do use an accelerator on the glue, make sure not to use too much, because it will cause air pockets. Okay, the next one is leopard wood. This is a very soft material, very easy to tear out. I think it's time to sharpen. Maybe I'll do a quick video on the sharpening. This is the sharpening that I use, sharpener. This is just made out of scrap. As you can see, it's made out of diamond plate. Basically the way it works is, the ball sits in there and allows you to rotate the tool. I have a stop block so I can get it set the same each time. Then all I have to do is tighten it down. And you want to rotate it from the center. One or two passes is all it takes to get a good sharp edge on it. This is another way of sharpening. Basically this will slide into here where that is. And it's just to allow the cutter to rotate. This is what's known as a fingernail gouge. You do not want to use that jig for sharpening bow skews. This is a bow gouge. I use the same setup. It's the same principle. It doesn't really matter the angle. If the angle though is too steep, you can do a relief cut on the back like that. Go with whatever angle is comfortable to you. If it doesn't cut, change the angle. There really is no preference. Okay, now that our tool is sharp, let's try it again. also, after you sharpen, if it feels like there's a burr, you can just use a piece of leather and strap it to get rid of the burr. Always check to make sure you're not going to hit tool rest. Hopefully it's not too much noise. There was a lot of complaints about this lathe being too high of a RPM for turning bows, but I've turned several on it and have had no problems or issues. My first lathe was one that I built for turning bows, but I upgraded to this one. It's a cheap one, I think around $400. Cheaper than one of the higher end ones. This hand is only here to hold the tool down to the rest. as I was turning it, coming up, it was turning more white color. That's because I'm going against the grain, and instead of shearing it, it's wanting to pull the grain out. Now watch as it comes down, it'll change color. See that color change? That is a shear cut, not a tear cut. And if you do shear cuts, you won't have to do as much sanding or finish. Nothing special. Very little profile on this one. A little bit more on this one. As I'm cutting, I'm not looking at the cutter though, I'm looking up above to know where I'm at. Okay, now it's time to do the finish. Okay, I'm going to start with 150. Remember not to stand near the cushion. sand. Always do a cross sand. This will remove any cross scratching from the rotational sand. Also, you'd want to plamish before you start sanding. This is plamishing. Put a handful of wood. On to the next. I think I'll skip the sanding and get to the end of after sanding. Okay, now we're ready for the finish. I'm just going to use a triple E finish, wax, maybe a Renaissance wax, I don't know yet. It doesn't take much triple E. I'm just going to use a regular wax finish. Grab a towel, paper towel. Doesn't take much. Apply a little pressure to this. Liberal pressure, both sides. After you've sanded, if it feels like there's any little grain sticking up, you can wet sand. Wet sand the wood, that's right. That'll remove all those little blemishes sticking up, which we don't have on this. We're good now to assemble it. Before I do that, like I said, there's multiple ways of doing finishings. Triple E or Renaissance wax. You can't even buff it. This is a buffer that I built many years ago. This one is for metals, and this one is for woods. I usually use triple E, canobra wax or beeswax, white diamond. Makes a good finish on wood. especially if it's a complex piece. For the assembly, I'm just going to use this press that I made a long time ago. I just turned the Acme thread on a shaft. What this does is allows for massive movement. The gear was cut from a hob that I made as well. You can use a drill press as well. Just make you a soft tip. Okay, now for the assembly. Parts are relatively simple. You have the nib, which is the end. You have a twist mechanism. You have a solid seamless ferrule, which is the center band. You'll have the clip, and you'll have the butt cap refill, and the two barrels, of course. Since I don't have a camera mount, the camera mount that I use on the lathe is securely mounted to it. I'm going to try this, see if it'll sit. I'll try and stay out of the view. It might be impossible. I'm going to start with the nib, which is the point. If it feels like it's not wanting to start straight, straighten it with your hand. And you should have a nice clean transaction from the nib to the barrel. Next will be the twist mechanism. This is what advances the ink refill. Test it. Hard to get it focused. It's not too bad. It could go a little bit more, but I'm going to call that good. Next is the center band. Final part is the butt cap and end clip. And that is a finished pen. They are refillable. Everything that I make is refillable. I don't think I'm going to show any videos of the other ones just yet. It's been long enough already. But I will do a separate video on the variation. It'll be next.